been essentially all sports, as it contains medicine.
Anything in the past that you talked about on radio or television?
In the past, I have been hired by several shows to go on for a 2 or 3 minute blurb to talk about general medical issues on a revolving basis.
Would you say that substantially almost all of your income comes from your private practice of medicine, not from talking on radio or television?
That's correct.
And not from writing a book?
That is correct.
In fact, were people highly critical in the football league of the book that you wrote?
Actually not. I think that on one team they were critical.
What team was that?
The Los Angeles Raiders.
And why were they critical?
Calls for hearsay, lack of foundation, and speculation.
Sustained. I think the jury can figure that out.
Well, maybe they don't know Mr. Davis, Your
They can figure it out.
Thank you.
All right. They're all nodding, yes, they figured it out.
Now, Mr. Kelberg made a big issue and waived this.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Mr. Kelberg showed you a letter that is dated February 5th, 1995. Can I show this to the witness? Which had a Post-it over it. And that Post-it was a question to my colleague, Mr. Carl Douglas. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, did you send that letter to myself and Mr. Douglas?
Yes, I did.
With the Post-it?
Yes, I did.
And as part of discovery, were you aware that we turned that letter over to Mr. Kelberg?
I had no idea what your discovery processes are.
But he had the same copy of the letter that we had, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And he had the same Post-it on it.
Yes, he did.
So you weren't trying to hide anything from the jury about that, were you?
No, I wasn't.
And did you demonstrate some concern about not being able to find that in your file when Mr. Kelberg asked you about that yesterday?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do in that regard?
I had reviewed my chart on that late Thursday night after talking to you, and I remembered that it wasn't in the part of my notes that I reviewed, but in fact it was misfiled in a different part of this chart here. Hadn't seen it.
Did you take time on your own to try to find that?
Yes, I did
Did
last
anybody
night.
ask you to do that?
No, they didn't.
And did you find that?
Yes, I did.
And did you give it to Mr. Kelberg this morning?
Yes, I did.
And is that the same copy of the letter that Mr. Kelberg already had?
Yes, it is.
Had you ever been asked by a criminal lawyer before to write a summary of your findings so that they could be turned over in a procedure we call discovery?
No, I had never participated in that.
Were you asked to do that?
Yes, I was.
Was it a truthful summary of your findings that you wrote to Mr. Douglas?
Yes, it was absolutely truthful.
Why did you ask that question? Is this all right?
I had no idea how long he wanted the summary to be, whether he wanted it a half a page or 5 pages. I made it 1 page, and I wasn't sure whether that was the type of in-depth presentation of the problems that he felt was appropriate given the report he wanted me to generate.
Your question had nothing to do with accuracy or integrity of the report, but more the form of the report,
That's correct.
what we would call form over substance.
Objection is argumentative and leading and suggestive.
Sustained.
You have never done any type of report like that before, have you?
No, I have not.
Have you ever done any since?
No, I have not.
And that's not something you do when you do your patient evaluation the way you did for Mr. Simpson in the ordinary course of your practice. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Now, in examining Mr. Simpson, you told us that you diagnosed a lymph node under his armpit.
That is correct.
Did that concern you as a doctor?
Very much so.
Why did that concern you?
Because given the whole constellation of his complaints, I was concerned that that could indicate some sort of infection, cancer, or other acute process that needed to be resolved in the middle of everything else that was going on, and it presented many medical as well as organizational problems to properly treat that problem. When you see an ordinary patient, you don't have the pressures that were faced in this in terms of time, availability of the patient, and other issues.
Were you later advised that Mr. Simpson was going to be charged with a crime?
Yes, I was.
And did that have any effect on speeding up your next examination of Mr. Simpson?
Yes, it did.
What effect did that have?
Well, we needed to get in and draw more blood tests and put skin tests on to evaluate some of the possibilities for that abnormal lymph node.
That wasn't to prepare any type of defense in this case, was it?
None whatsoever.
That was because you were told that Mr. Simpson would be going to jail?
That's correct.
And in your experience in this case, have you found it is more difficult to treat a patient in jail?
It is more difficult to treat a patient in jail than in the usual Beverly Hills setting.
And did you continue your treatment of Mr. Simpson for this lymph node?
Yes, I did.
Tell the jury what you did regarding that.
Well, it was a very difficult situation because I was told when he went into jail that the admitting doctor who examined him said he didn't have a lymph.
Objection, Your Honor, I'll move to strike as non-responsive. The question is, what?
Yes,
did
it
you do?
is. Yes. What did you do?
What did you do to follow up on that lymph node, if anything?
Followed up on the blood test and tried to gain access into the hospital so that I could have a cancer specialist evaluate the patient.
So this is not something you did on your own, but you again went to a subspecialist.
That is correct. After initially going to an infectious disease specialist with the initial batch of results and feeling that that probably wasn't our first line of attack.
Did you also consult with the jail physician
Yes, I did.
on this very issue?
Yes, I did.
And was there a difference of opinion between yourself and the jail physician?
Yes, there was.
Objection is calling for hearsay, lack of foundation.
Overruled.
And how did that opinion differ?
That opinion differed because I was told the doctor that evaluated him on the night he went into the hospital felt there was no lymph node.
And you believe there was?
And I had believed that there was, correct.
Tell the jury what you had to do to follow up on this and what steps you had to go through to properly treat Mr. Simpson.
That's not particularly relevant. What he actually did, what treatment he got, is relevant.
Would you answer the judge's question? What you actually did and what treatment you got?
What kind of testing did you arrange for and where and when?
After initially going through all his first batch of tests with a infectious disease specialist informally, since it was very difficult to gain access into the jail, I made arrangements first to get myself back in the jail to try to assess his lymph node as well as other continuing problems with the night sweats. And then when I ascertained that the lymph node was in fact still there, over a period of time arranged to have a cancer specialist get admittance into the jail and feel the lymph node to feel whether he felt it was a benign node or a pathological node based on his examination.
And what took place after that?
Well, Dr. Greg Sarna saw him in the jail and felt that there was, given his history and physical examination that he conducted in the jail infirmary, that there was up to a 10% chance that given this history and physical, he had something in the range of a Hodgkin's-type cancer, and a 90% chance that it was some other benign or infectious disease.
And what was the recommendation that was made based on that evaluation?
The recommendation made was to have him hospitalized and to excise this index right axillary node.
Was that done?
Yes, it was.
And did the node in fact exist?
Yes, it did.
The jail doctor was wrong.
The initial admitting jail physician was incorrect in his initial assessment.
Did this have anything whatsoever to do with the defense of O.J. Simpson in this case?
None whatsoever.
Did you do any further studies relating to any issues regarding the defense of O.J. Simpson in this case?
The only other issues that I did were on the evaluation of the cancer on the 17th. I drew extra blood relating to his hematologic status, whether or not he had any proclivity to bleed or clot more quickly than the normal at the bequest of Dr. Bodden.
And what was the result of that?
The results of that was that it appeared like his coagulation studies were normal, although there were a couple very esoteric tests that were borderline and suggested a possibility of a very minor tendency to bleed more than what would be considered normal.
And Dr. Bodden is a forensic pathologist?
Yes, he is.
And his job is, well, do you know what his job is? Do you know what he does for a living?
He is a forensic pathologist, to my understanding.
And he does autopsies for the state of New York?
That was my understanding, right.
Have you ever done an autopsy
I have,
outside of medical school?
no, I have not. We've watched limited autopsies as part of a teaching process in the hospital. Occasionally, patients that expire in a teaching situation in the hospital, we will go down and have early morning autopsy viewings and discussions of organs.
You didn't do an autopsy of the decedents in this case.
No, I did not.
You didn't see any photographs of the decedents in this case.
No, I did
Did
not.
that have anything to do with your examination of O.J. Simpson?
No, it did not.
Have you ever been asked to give an opinion of a decedent's injuries on a hand the way Mr. Kelberg asked you to?
No, I never have.
Was that your purpose in coming here, to give an opinion on the injuries of a decedent?
No, it wasn't.
Did you go to the crime scene in this case?
No, I have not.
Did you talk to criminalists in this case?
No, I have not.
That's not your function, is it?
No, it is not.
Before you were asked these questions, other than on general knowledge, did you have any specific knowledge as to how these murders took place?
None whatsoever.
Let me ask you a general question. Describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the basic range of patients you see by age.
Well, we probably see individuals all the way from 15 up to, I think my oldest patient is 101, 102.
Excluding the young and the very old and the infirmed, is there any patient that you treat that would not be capable of handling a knife?
I really don't believe that there is. I think all of them could.
Is there any patient that you treat that would not be capable of cutting someone with a knife?
No, not unless they had a fracture on that arm or some type of obvious deformity.
And would you give the same answer to the general population of Southern California with the exclusion of the young, the old, and the infirmed?
I think that would be a fair statement.
Do you see, you saw the video here, obviously,
Yes, I did.
and that's only part of the video, isn't it?
That is true.
You saw a complete video that we showed you, is that correct?
That's correct.
And in that complete video, it shows Mr. Simpson drinking lots of water, does it not?
That is true.
And it shows Mr. Simpson talking about flights on airplanes
That's true.
and jet lag.
That is true.
Do you recommend for your patients between the ages of 15 and 101 any type of physical exercise?
Recommend physical exercise to all my patients
Why?
because I think it's very good for your health.
And are there different levels of physical exercise that you recommend?
Absolutely.
And what do they range from?
Well, they range from basically, in the case of my 101-year-old patient, telling her to walk around her house on her walker on a daily basis, to discussing workout plans with professional athletes.
Regarding the video that you just saw, would you recommend that to any particular age group of patients you have?
I think that that's a very low impact, and it's relatively straightforward aerobically, and so that sort of level of exercise would probably be more appropriate for very healthy individuals, maybe all the way up to, you know, both men and women, assuming that you did kind of knee push-ups all the way in the mid-70s or higher, certainly should be able to do what we saw on that tape.
The actual push-ups would take additional shoulder strength?
I think additional pec strength, you know, if we expected people of that age group to do push-ups.
I noticed you taking some notes during the playing of the video. Did you notice any breaks within that video?
Yes, I did.
And would you describe those to the jury as to what effect that would have on somebody doing the movements rather in that video?
Well, obviously, when you take a break, you recharge your batteries in terms of your aerobic mechanism, and your heart rate's going to come way down, and so you're not going to, like running a treadmill, you're not going to, poop out when you have those rest periods. In terms of the movements, for certain types of arthritis, actually moving may help limber the joints a little bit, certainly osteoarthritis. Sometimes after moving somewhat, you can warm up the joints a little bit.
Now, Mr. Kelberg spent a lot of time talking to you about your,
I'll object again his argument.
Sustain, rephrase the question.
asked a lot of questions. Is that okay? Asked you questions about professional football players.
Correct.
Do you know when the last time Mr. Simpson played in a professional football game was?
I assume it was somewhere around 1980.
About 15 years ago?
That's correct.
As somebody who's familiar with sports, are you familiar with the Old Timers baseball game?
I've heard it mentioned. I've never seen that.
Have you ever heard of an Old Timers football game?
No, I have not.
Do you know why they don't have one?
Because they're all in orthopedics office.
Regarding your experience with professional football players, are there positions known as skilled positions?
Yes, there are.
And what does that refer to?
A skill position is something in terms of a wide receiver, quarterback, running back.
Mr. Simpson was a running back?
Yes, he was.
He would qualify in a skilled position.
That's correct.
And in your experience, do players in skilled positions have to be mad to play football?
No, they don't.
Do they have to be angry to play football?
No, they don't.
Are you aware that Mr. Simpson, through his 4 years of college and 15 years in the NFL, carried the ball more times than any other runner in that period of history?
That's what I understand, right.
And was his job to tackle people?
No, it wasn't.
Was his job to block people?
No, it wasn't.
Was his job to try to run away from people and score a touchdown?
That's correct.
And if he didn't score a touchdown, what would happen to him when he was carrying the ball?
He'd get hit from various angles.
And if he carried the ball more than any other player in the history of the NFL up till that period of time, and in college up till that period of time, would you say then he was hit more than any other player?
Certainly,
All for speculation.
Oh,
he would be hit certainly while playing games more, and practices would certainly add to that toll.
What's the effect of, on a running back carrying a football, being hit by one or more other players in a tackle?
Objection is irrelevant in the abstract.
well,
When you get hit, in terms of the joints, you may occasionally damage ligaments and bony structures.
And is that something that you would expect to find in a retired running back?
That is something that may occur in a retired running back, sure.
Was Mr. Simpson the type of player who had the reputation of being a friendly football player?
I think that's a correct statement.
Are you aware that in the 15 years that he played football, he was only involved in one fight?
Objection, Honor, that seems facts not known.
sustain.
You can make an offer of proof, Your Honor. Are you aware that football players would pick him up after he was tackled?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Oh, well. You can answer that question.
Yes, I believe that's also correct.
In fact, that happened when UCLA played USC, didn't it? So he was a friendly sort of
I didn't hear
player.
your answer, I'm sorry, for the last question.
They didn't have to pick him up. Next question.
He was not the type of player that would play with anger,
I
in your
don't-
opinion?
In my opinion, that's correct.
Not this type of adrenaline rush. Would that be the same for anyone who's in an emergency situation?
That's correct.
That's human behavior. That's not limited to football players, is it?
That is correct.
And in fact, you talked about the fear syndrome. would you say that adrenaline reaction would be the same if somebody was being attacked by more than one person with a knife?
That is correct.
And would that cause them to fight back?
I would certainly expect that.
And would you expect that they might fight back with more strength than they ordinarily would have?
Your Honor, I'll object, he's outside the field of expertise, he said he's not a forensic pathologist.
Overruled.
That's a very logical assumption to me.
You were asked a hypothetical question by Mr. Kelberg, and he listed a series of 10 witnesses, and he said if some of these witnesses or one of these witnesses did not see Mr. Simpson limping. You remember that question?
Correct?
Let me ask you another hypothetical. If an individual by the name of Jim McKay came to this court and testified that he had never met O.J. Simpson before, and on June the 8th of 1994 he played golf with him, and as a complete stranger he observed Mr. Simpson to be limping, would that confirm the conclusions you reached on June the 15th?
That would certainly corroborate what I saw on the 15th.
And do you believe that as a doctor with a trained eye, you might be able to detect something that a layperson would call a limp more easily than a layperson who is not trained with your background, experience, and education?
Yes.
You were asked questions about Dr. Martell and x-rays of the elbow.
That is correct.
Did you review any other x-rays that Mr. Kelberg didn't ask you about from Dr. Martell?
I did not review those particular x-rays.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I got sent a copy of Dr. Martell's findings.
There were some other findings that you wanted to relate in response to a question from Mr. Kelberg relating Dr. Martell, is that correct?
Definitely needs to
Overruled.
Dr. Martell basically read the elbows as being normal. And basically what I was starting to say when he asked me that question or read that thing off the report was that you can have rheumatoid arthritis of the elbow and you can have flexion contractures, that's a possibility, and still have a normal x-ray appearance. It's a difficult call. This is why you have specialists. That certainly isn't in my bailiwick, but that's what I was starting to bring up with him.
After 2 days of cross-examination,
Overruled.
is your opinion any different as to whether or not Mr. Simpson had any bruises on him when you observed him on the 15th of June?
No, it is not.
After 2 days of cross-examination, is your opinion that the cut on the top of the middle finger of the left hand was more consistent with glass?
I felt that was more consistent with glass because as it came around, it curved initially. If you remember the picture over his third, let's go to the left hand and do it the right way. As it curved, it came right over the joint, and then it took an acute angle, approximately 60 degrees, and then that acute angle to me said, sure, it could be a knife, there could be movement, but to me that said, that's why I fell off of the fence on that cut as being more consistent with glass.
Assume that on Monday, June the 13th, Mr. Simpson, let me just check this date for a second. In the afternoon, a nurse employed by the County of Los Angeles named Mr. Paratus was called upon to examine Mr. Simpson's left hand and assume that the only injury that he talked about was the cut that you have just described as a fishhook cut. Would that cause you to conclude that the injuries on the side of the finger were not there at that time?
Sustained.
Would a nurse be in a position, a county nurse be in a position to see the cuts that you've described to the jury, in your opinion, if he was properly trained and certified?
I believe That would be true.
And if the nurse did not observe those cuts on the 12th, would that indicate that they occurred sometime after the 12th, and would that be consistent with your
And it
findings?
states the hypotheticals of 13.
Oh, well,
That would be consistent.
Is the cut on the index finger of Mr. Simpson consistent with somebody who broke a drinking glass that you would find in a hotel bathroom?
The fourth finger, you said index.
The middle finger.
The middle finger, okay. This cut, the proximal or the distal, there's two cuts on that third finger.
I made a mistake. Mr. Cochran has corrected me. He works for the city of Los Angeles, the nurse. Would that change your opinion rather than the county?
No, it would not.
Let's get back to the glass. When you travel with the football teams, do you guys stay in hotels around the country?
Yes, we do.
Did you go in the bathroom?
Yes, you would.
They have little glasses there with kind of little doilies on the bottom and a little kind of top thing on top that says sanitary with a little blue signia on it.
That's correct.
You familiar with those glasses?
Yes, I am.
If that glass was broken when somebody was informed of the death of their ex-wife, could that type of glass cause that type of injury?
Objection, Your Honor, is an improper hypothetical.
sustain.
Could a drinking glass similar to those glasses that you've observed account for that type of injury?
On the proximal third
Yes.
finger, yes, that cut is consistent.
Now Mr. Kelberg asked you questions, and I don't remember the names of them, I'm not that familiar with them, about some kind of cells. He had one name for it, you had another name for some kind of healing cells?
He named it phagocytes. I think, I'm not,
And you
It's a
called it
confusing question.
monocytes?
well, he said that you start out with a wound and you have phagocytes there, but really you start out in an inflammatory phase with neutrophils, and then it moves to monocytes, which another name for it can be the phagocytes.
Okay. In any regard, whatever they're called, in the healing process,
Right.
he talked about confusion. Are you confused as to whether the jagged edges were caused by cutting glass or by the healing process?
That misstates the testimony.
Oh, well,
No, I am not.
What is your opinion?
My opinion is that those injuries were caused by a sharp object, and they are more consistent with glass than a knife, but they were caused by a sharp object.
May I have a moment to confer with my colleagues before I finish, Your Honor?
sir.
In your experience, Doctor, with professional football players, have you seen occasions when they act irrational
Yes, I have.
and Do you have any opinion as to the cause of those types of actions?
Objection, Your Honor, as to relevancy.
Overruled.
Yes, anabolic steroids.
Did you run a test on Mr. Simpson to see whether or not he was using anabolic steroids when you saw him on June the 15th?
Yes, I did.
And what was the result of that test?
Negative.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Kelberg, how much time do you need to cross-examine?
All right, just a moment.
Doctor, did you ever
Excuse me,
prescribe?
counsel. How much time do you need to cross-examine?
I'm not going to finish by noon, I'm quite sure.
How much time do you need to
Oh,
cross-examine?
maybe 20 minutes?
Proceed.
25 minutes? Doctor, did you prescribe the Xanax for the stress that you assessed on June 15th from Mr. Simpson?
Objection, improper re-cross-examination.
Overruled.
No, I did not.
To your knowledge, did someone prescribe for him Xanax?
I referred him to a psychiatrist, so I can't speak for that.
Is Xanax a depressant?
Xanax is an anti-anxiety drug.
And doctor, is one of its side effects that it can make people sleepy?
That is correct.
Now, doctor, I want to discuss a few things that were touched upon by Mr. Shapiro. First of all, you said no old-timers NFL games. There are old-timer hockey games, aren't there?
I'm not aware of that. That's possibly true.
Hockey's a pretty violent sport, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And people sustain severe knee injuries in that sport, correct?
That is correct.
And in fact, one of the typical defensive actions in hockey is something called checking, right?
That's correct.
And one type of checking is to slam your body into the body of the opposing player, and the two bodies go slamming into the boards, right?
That's correct.
And that,
Kelberg, whether or not other sports have old-timer games is interesting but not real productive here.
all right, perhaps I should have objected as irrelevant on the NFL, but I'll move to something else. Doctor, you were talking about getting patients. Do you accept insurance?
No, I do not.
So I thought you said you billed Mr. Simpson's insurance company for the care you provided. Is that a misstatement?
We build SAG, and then typically, we ask the patient to pay the remainder.
Are you on any kind of HMO panels?
No, I am not.
So all of your patients have to be patients who can pay your bills, is that correct?
That's correct.
And your practice is in Beverly Hills, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Do you have like an hourly rate, or how do you charge patients
We
for
charge-
general exams?
Charge based on examinations or lab tests that are done in the office.
And if I came to you, maybe I better not choose myself, if somebody came to you for a first evaluation, what would be the typical cost of such an evaluation?
Overruled.
It would be quite variable anywhere. It would all depend on exactly what was done.
Well, in general, doctor, you described what is a general initial evaluation, Beverly Hills standards, Mr. Shapiro asked you about. What's the cost of that?
I would say something like for a thorough physical exam, somewhere around $1,000, 600,000.
Now, doctor, you said in response to Mr. Shapiro's question that you cared about Mr. Simpson,
That's
correct?
correct.
You cared about his health?
That's correct.
Do you care if he's acquitted?
You build a bond with patients. When you see a patient and you evaluate them, you have to care about them. If you don't care about them, you really wouldn't be able to be their doctor.
And isn't it that care, that closeness you develop with the patient that can subconsciously influence those subjective evaluations that you admitted on cross-examination doctors make, such as in Mr. Simpson's case?
Sustain. Sustain.
Doctor, when you develop a closeness and fondness for a patient, in your opinion, can that affect your objectivity in evaluating the patient's case?
Anything is possible, but you have to fight to try to minimize that or eliminate it.
For example, doctor, isn't it the case that physicians are taught to send family members to independent doctors for evaluations because of concern that your relationship with the patient may cloud your judgment.
That is correct.
Incidentally, you talked about a family doctor. There is a specialty of medicine, a board-certified specialty called family medicine. Isn't that correct, doctor?
I'm lacking in my knowledge of that exact fact.
Well, you talked about some residency programs. Are you familiar with whether Cedars has a residency program in family medicine?
They did not when I was there in my training.
That's 83 you ended your training?
That's correct.
Now, doctor, you were asked some questions about whether or not Mr. Simpson went to Dr. Job and to Dr. Maltz before June 12th of 1994 in some effort to set up a defense to the crimes, and you indicated to your belief he did not, correct?
That's correct.
On the other hand, doctor, if you assume hypothetically Mr. Simpson murdered his ex-wife and Mr. Goldman, would you agree that he would have a motive after the crime to come limping into your office for the visit arranged by his lawyer, Mr. Shapiro, in an effort to make it appear that he may have physical limitations to his ability to have acted on June 12th?
Sustained improper hypothetical. Rephrase the question.
Doctor, would you agree that you did not, there was no way that you could determine objectively on June 15th whether Mr. Simpson's limp that caused you to believe he moved like Tarzan's grandfather was legitimate or one that was put on in an effort to convey a condition that was weaker than he truly was? You had no objective way to determine that, did you?
There is an objective way to attempt to evaluate that by looking at joints, and it appeared to me, given his left knee and what didn't appear to be a problem in the video, his right ankle, sometimes a limp can intensify when you have two weight-bearing joints that are affected. As you point out, and I absolutely have to agree with you, there can be malingering on certain levels in orthopedics, but that was my best determination at the time.
By the way, doctor, you talked about some difficulties with the jail. You were able to get Mr. Simpson to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center for the biopsy, correct?
That is correct.
And in your opinion, his care was not compromised in any way, was it, with respect to evaluation of that lymph node for possible sign of cancer, correct?
If there had been an acute problem, it might have been, because I really couldn't get access for several weeks into the jail.
And it turned out that it was benign,
That's
correct?
absolutely correct.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask Mr. Farrow. I was going to ask Mr. Farrow. Could I ask Mr. Harris if he could help me out to put something on?
wanna
Doctor,
show
I'm going to
this?
show you a couple pictures.
Show this to counsel first.
I am going to do so right now. It's the photograph.
All right.
I'm not an expert in
All right. Use the photograph, Mr. Kelberg.
I'm sorry.
Proceed.
If Mr. Shapiro will give me the, I'm sorry, I'm not clear. May I proceed with the photographs, Your Honor? Or
What is it a photograph of?
photographs of hands of sufferers of rheumatoid arthritis.
Proceed.
And I don't know, Mr. Harris, is it possible you could turn it 90 degrees? in any way to help you out? Can you back it up possibly to? That's it. That was better, actually. I think you had it. I'm sorry. All right. We're going to get dizzy. That's fine. That's fine. Doctor, and I can bring you the text. I just want to be able to show it for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Do these appear to be hands of people suffering from various stages of rheumatoid arthritis?
Yes, they do.
And it can be a very crippling disease, can it not?
That is correct.
Mr. Simpson did not have joint deformity of any degree similar to even the lower photograph, let alone the upper photograph, did he, sir?
Certainly not the upper photograph where you have end-stage ulnar deviation. I really can't evaluate the proximal, the lower picture to compare that.
Could I ask
Very
if,
well.
if Mr. Harris could print this picture, and then I'm going to show the book to the doctor so he can see it up close. May I approach, Your Honor? Doctor, I'm showing you this book, and Your Honor, may the printout be marked as, I think we're at 526?
Yes.
The initial picture, as the text describes, is synovial perforation of the MCP joints to a lesser extent of the proximal interphalangeal joints. If you look at his hands and the swellings there, and we can argue about hard versus boggy swellings, you know, I think that they're roughly comparable. We can argue about exactly what their origin is.
And you feel comfortable with your expertise in rheumatology to do that, is that correct?
No,
Doctor?
I do not.
Well, doctor, I wanted to ask you, when Mr. Shapiro on direct examination was asking you a series of questions about causes of cuts and so forth, did it ever occur to you to say, it's outside my field of expertise?
Sustained. Phrase the question.
Doctor, did you ever feel it was outside of your field of expertise in answering any of the questions posed to you by Mr. Shapiro?
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
With respect to any question asking for an opinion of the injury sustained by Mr. Simpson, did you feel that to offer an opinion on such subject was outside your field of expertise?
No, I did not.
When you were asked hypothetical questions by me, did you ever say, with respect to the blunt force trauma injuries to Mr. Goldman and the abrasions to Mr. Simpson, that it was outside your field of expertise to offer an opinion, and therefore you should not offer an opinion?
There was an objection by counsel.
Overruled.
You may answer the question, doctor. Did you ever say that? It was outside your field of expertise?
I think when we showed those autopsy photos, I may have said that. I don't have, you'll have to kind of read back that question.
Doctor, if you felt that in answering any hypothetical question asked by me, it was outside your field of expertise, did you feel you could say so?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. We objected to this.
Overruled.
And he was ordered.
Overruled.
Your Honor, I would ask the court, with
No,
respect,
proceed.
speaking objection.
Proceed.
Doctor, you may answer the question.
Could you
Did
give-
you feel that if it was a question calling for an opinion outside your field of expertise, that you could answer that it was outside your field of expertise and you could not answer the question?
I think as a baseline for my testimony, I have said I wasn't an expert in these various areas. You have asked me many, many questions in every area of expertise. Some of the areas you asked me questions actually, quote unquote, don't have, as you put it, a board certified specialty, and that one of those would be the area of the cuts. But there were, there's no board certification for someone that evaluates whether when someone walks into an office, you know, it's a knife or it's a glass cut on an outpatient. Obviously, forensic pathologists deal with that, but that is an area that we see a lot. And so I offered an opinion, but that's all it was based on the experience that I did give you. And you asked me many other hypothetical questions, some of which, you know, I gave you as truthful an answer as I could, but there were instances where I may have said things that, in fact, I didn't have any direct knowledge of. And I can think of, one such question that I was staying up a little bit last night thinking about, and that was when you asked me if someone had brutally killed 2 people after I had said that Mr. Simpson was under a lot of stress. If they had brutally killed 2 people, would that be a lot on their mind? And as I was thinking about that last night, that would be my opinion. If I put myself in my own body, I would think that would be true. But then again, I've never talked to a convicted murderer. I've never had any contact with a murderer that was convicted at any point in my life. And really, there's an example where I should have said, I really don't have any idea what type of emotional reaction a cold-blooded killer has, because when I was thinking about that late last night, I think that's one of the things that I did regret saying that I definitely did say.
My question to you was, Doctor, did you feel that you could say, it's outside my field of expertise, I can't answer the question? Did you feel that was an answer you could give in a court of law as a witness having taken an oath if it was a question that you felt was outside your field of expertise? That's the question, yes or no. Did you feel you could, or did you feel you couldn't?
I felt that it was my responsibility to try to answer the questions as best I could, given the caveat that everybody knew what my credentials were and weren't.
I'll ask the question one more time, Doctor.
No, I think we've asked the question.
All right. Doctor, have you ever had patients who were involved in civil litigation?
Yes, I have.
Have you ever had to prepare reports for attorneys in civil litigation?
Yes, I have.
And the fact that this is a criminal case versus your past experience in civil litigation, how, if at all, does that affect the kind of report you were to prepare?
I was told that my records were not going to be passed over and that I had to prepare a summary. I've never, ever been asked that request previously in my professional career.
Have you ever been retained by an attorney, either for the plaintiff in a civil personal injury action or a defendant, an insurance company, for example, to evaluate a patient and give a report to the requesting party of that evaluation?
I have, in a handful of cases, reviewed charts in legal matters, often about sports medicine and anabolic steroids.
Have you prepared?
If I've done that, it's been very rarely. I really can't remember a case right off the top of my head. It's possible that I've done that once or twice.
And when you've done that, have you prepared reports for the party requesting you to review the record?
I just can't remember a case where I've had a patient come in who, maybe I can remember one case or 2 cases, and I must have prepared a report for them.
Now, Doctor, you did see what you said, I think, originally was the commercial video.
That's correct.
And all of the aerobic exercise that we see in that type of environment is included in the commercial video. Some of what we saw, because they did multiple takes, is not included in the commercial video, correct?
That's correct.
And the commercial video also has Mr. Simpson taking golf swings and shooting a basketball and so forth. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But there is no segment of this commercial tape dealing with the aerobic exercises of the type we were looking at in the exhibit, which is, has been, I'm sorry, let me rephrase the question. The commercial tape does not have all of the aerobic exercise we saw on the exhibit,
That's correct.
but it does have at least one segment of each type of the activity. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement.
So you didn't feel misled, did you, by seeing what is actually more footage of Mr. Simpson than is provided in the commercial video regarding his ability to perform these types of aerobic exercises?
No, I did not.
By the way, Doctor, in looking at that video, did you see where Mr. Simpson, in some segments, the boxing segments, for example, was able to fully extend his right and left arms?
No, I did not see that.
Never saw... I'm sorry.
In my opinion, in doing those boxing punches, it was relatively clear that the fixed flexion contractions were there, and he was not able to fully extend his arms in any shot there.
You saw him do push-ups, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And did you see, at least in some instances, where he was doing push-ups with both his left and right hands palms to the surface of the floor?
Yes, I did.
And what is the angle that was required for him to do that and do a push-up as he was doing them, that is a traditional push-up, unlike the trainer at one point where the trainer was on his knees? What's the angle of flexion?
A traditional push-up, you'll get right under your chest, and you'll go, you know, not all the way back 90 degrees necessarily, but you'll come close. What he would do is he would kind of manipulate. You could see him kind of stumble a little bit when he would get up and go down, and he would get that left hand a little bit further out front so that he didn't have to bring that thing up to 90 degrees. So he would do his push-ups with his hands out in front so that that inability to bring back his hand, he could compensate for that when he did the push-ups.
But in fact, that would place more weight bearing on the hand in that position than if it were in the more traditional position closer to the chest, wouldn't it, sir?
Place weight where?
Make it a more difficult procedure in placing his weight in going down and up, pushing down and up. He's got to exert more effort because he hasn't got his hands in the most opportune position physiologically. Isn't that correct?
I agree with that.
And he was able to do that, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
And he did it multiple times.
Yes, he did.
Now, doctor, my hypothetical on that video was all those shots were done in one day. You remember that, don't you?
Yes, I do.
And the breaks were maybe 6 minutes or 7 minutes. Did you write down the times?
Yes, I did.
Some of them were around 6 or 7 minutes.
Some of them were as long as from 6:27:32 to 16:41:06. So again, this is higher math, but that's 14 minutes. But some it looked like were 6 minutes. I'll take your word for that.
Well, no, don't take my word, doctor. If you wrote down the time, you tell us the amount of time of breaks that you wrote down.
All right, now you're gonna test my.
Counsel, this is a minor issue.
All right. I will move on. You talked about adrenaline rush, doctor. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Have you heard of it referred to in terms of the fight or flight response?
Yes, I have.
And if Mr. Goldman was being attacked by a more powerful individual who had the element of surprise and an approximately 6-inch long knife at Mr. Goldman's throat, would you expect under those circumstances that Mr. Goldman's physiological response would be an adrenaline rush?
Sustained.
Doctor, would you agree that if a person is threatened with imminent great bodily harm, that that is the kind of circumstance which can cause the adrenaline automatically to begin flowing?
I think that's a fair statement.
And doctor, would you agree that the normal reaction of a human being facing danger is to run from the danger if at all possible?
Objection beyond the scope of expertise.
Sustained.
Doctor, you have reviewed in your training as a physician basic physiology, have you not?
Yes, I have.
And in basic physiology, they talk about the fight or flight response, don't they, sir?
Yes, they do.
And you learned that the normal human reaction physiologically to a threat of great bodily injury or death is to try and flee, if possible. Isn't that correct?
Objection beyond the scope, beyond his expertise.
Overruled.
You may answer the question, doctor.
Your normal reaction is to try to protect yourself and save your life in whatever manner is possible.
And generally that is to flee if possible. Isn't that correct?
Objection beyond his expertise.
Sustained.
Doctor, if Mr. Goldman had no place to go, he tried to flee and he's flailing his arms backwards in trying to get away from an attacker who is more powerful than he, and he is stabbed multiple times with fatal stab wounds, would you agree that he would not have had the opportunity in such an attack that may have taken less than a minute to flee?
Sustained.
Doctor, would you agree that the more rapid the assault, the threat of death or great bodily injury on the human being, the less time the person has to react either by way of flight or by way of fight?
Objection, speculation,
Sustain.
Doctor, with respect to Mr. Simpson and a congenial football player, he didn't have to get angry, or I don't want to misquote the way the question was asked by Mr. Shapiro. Would you expect that Mr. Simpson, when he is trying to break through linemen who may weigh 300 pounds trying to tackle him, was probably not smiling as he did so?
I think that when you're breaking through 300-pound linemen, you're in a zone. You know, I don't know if he was smiling or had his tongue hanging out or what, but I can't answer that.
And that zone is the harnessing of your energies to try and get a peak performance from your muscles to get you through and past, if possible, what is that impeding force of a 300-pound defensive tackle, right?
I think the harnessing is occurring, but there are also many other factors in terms of talent level. You know, if it was just a question of harnessing, you know, a lot of the rest of us would have a shot to play professional ball. So I think that's maybe only a minor component.
Would you agree that all players have to harness the energy?
Counsel, I think really the dynamics of professional sports is interesting.
Your Honor, I get once again the court's suggestion. May I have just a moment?
You may.
Doctor, one last area, and that is, Mr. Shapiro asked you about any question that Mr. Simpson has arthritis and whether you changed your opinion after your examination. And I want to ask the further question, is it still your opinion that there is nothing from your findings of Mr. Simpson's physical condition on June 15, 1994, which prevents him from murdering 2 human beings, as you previously said he could do?
Objection, ask the answer.
Overruled.
I believe that given the hypotheticals you've given me before in terms of someone that was in a fixed stationary position, does he have the strength to hold a knife, to wield a knife? I think the answer to that is yes.
My question, though, was to repeat the question that you were initially asked, that you said, yes, he had the physical capability to murder 2 human beings. Is that still your opinion? Yes or no?
Objection, ask and answer, misstates the question.
Overruled.
Given a list of hypotheticals, I'm not so sure whether he has the full capabilities to handle 2 people at once who both are able to flee. If individuals were taken or I don't really feel like I'm qualified to give you an absolute answer. He has some limitations which I've tried to describe, and I've said that he does have upper body strength, and he has certain limitations of his movement, certain difficulties we saw on the tape in terms of uncertainty getting off the ground and some slight stumbling motions. And we know at least on the 15th when I saw him, he had 2 joints that were hurting him and affected his ability to walk perfectly. I really can't state more than that, but certainly, as I've said before, given your hypotheticals, there was no medical impediment to holding a knife or slashing someone's throat based on my evaluation of his strength and his upper body evaluation.
Doctor, have you changed to this answer that you just gave from your previous answer, which was a direct yes, that he did have the physical capability to commit the murders, because you realize that your earlier answer will hurt Mr. Simpson on the issue of his guilt or innocence in this case? I have nothing.
Madam Reporter.
Do you have patience to see this afternoon?
I hope so.
Nothing further.
All right. Doctor, thank you very much. You, sir, are excused.
Your Honor, may I
I'm
ask
sorry.
that the Dr. Naki, excuse, I don't anticipate the need to recall him in rebuttal, but I want
We know where to find him. All right, Doctor, thanks a lot. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our break for the noon hour. Please remember all of my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you. Do not allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. We'll stand in recess 1:45. All right.
What is your honor wants to do, if you want to have those lawyers who are going to work out that, step outside and have us continue on.
Yes.
We're willing to do that, Your Honor.
Yes, I request that. All right, do we have our next witness?
Yes, our next witness is present.
All right.
And by the time of the break, I get word, I'll give the court a report. I don't know who's handling it for the people.
All right, let's have the jurors, please. Mr. Cochran? Who is our next witness? Be seated. All right, let the record reflect we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And the defense may call their next witness.
Yes, thank you very kindly, Your Honor. Our next witness will be Ms. Juanita Moore. Ms. Moore, would you step forward, please?
All right, Ms. Moore, would you stand right there, please, and face the clerk, Mrs. Robertson?
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court should be the truth and whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Please have a seat on the witness stand and state and spell your first and last names for the record.
My name is Juanita Moore, Juanita, last name Moore, Moore.
Mr. Cochran.
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Ms. Moore. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Very good, Ms. Moore. Thank you for coming today. Ms. Moore, what is your occupation, ma'am?
I am a barber.
And for how long have you been a barber?
Approximately 30 years.
And Do you have a barber shop somewhere within the confines of the County of Los Angeles?
Yes, on Adams Boulevard in Los Angeles.
All right, and for how long have you been at that location?
At that location, 14 years.
All right, now, Ms. Moore, do you, your barber shop's in the community, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you have a number of rather well-known patrons who patronize your barber shop?
Yes, I do.
Who are some of the people who you cut their hair?
Well,
I'll link it up.
um, do I answer?
Sure. No, go ahead.
Okay, Deputy Chief Bernard Parks, it's one. Ray Charles, Congressman Julian Dixon,
All right, so you have a number of people in the community like that?
yes.
All right, and do you have a gentleman who is to my left over here, Mr. O.J. Simpson? Is Mr. Simpson one of your customers?
Yes,
And how long did you cut Mr. Simpson's hair?
approximately 16 years.
And during that period of time, in the 16 years that you've cut Mr. Simpson's hair, at any time did you ever tint or dye Mr. Simpson's hair?
Tint or diet, no.
And so what we see is what, at least up to the time that you last saw him, what we see is what we're getting with him. Is that right?
Yes.
You know how they say only your hairdresser will know for sure?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
So you never at any time tinted or dyed his hair, is that correct?
No, I didn't.
All right. Now, in that connection, during the time, the 16 years that you cut Mr. Simpson's hair, did he have dandruff in his hair?
Periodically, he would have dandruff, yes.
And do you recall particular times when he'd have dandruff more than at other times?
It seemed that he would have dandruff more in the off-season,
All right,
when
now-
he was playing golf and in the sun a lot.
All right, now when you say the off-season, so that we're clear about that, in the last 10 years or so, when you would cut Mr. Simpson's hair, when you say off-season, what do you mean by off-season as
Well,
opposed to
he
on-season?
wasn't working as a reporter or he wasn't playing football.
All right, so was there a particular period of the year when Mr. Simpson would either be playing football or working as a sportscaster?
Yes, well, in the recent years, he would be gone like on season would start like September to like January.
All right, would that be during football season?
Yes,
All right, and during those periods of time, you wouldn't see him to cut his hair regularly, is that correct?
not as regular as during this off season.
All right. Would there be times, however, during the on-season or during football season that he would still come in to see you when he was in town?
The on season?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And in those times in the recent past, when he came in to see you, would you always cut his hair at your shop on Adams Boulevard, or would you do it someplace else on occasion?
I would do it in both places. I would do it at his home and at the shop.
All right. And his home, you know his home to be on Rockingham, do you?
Yes, I do.
All right. And you've been there.
Yes.
All right, ma'am. Now, with regard to the so-called off-season, you were saying that this condition of dandruff would be perhaps worse at times during the, I think you said, off-season when he's playing golf. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, would attribute to that he would have more dandruff in the off-season?
Well, it would happen mostly if he didn't put oil on his hair. If he put oil on his hair, he wouldn't have dandruff like he did. It would be when he played golf, he was in the sun, you know, and without the lack of oil, that would create that dry scalp.
All right. Now, you're not a dermatologist, are you?
I'm not a dermatologist, no.
And as such, with regard to when you would see dandruff in his hair or around his shoulders or whatever, what would you do for him or recommend to him?
Well, I would tell him to be sure to put more oil in his hair if he's going to be in the sun. And I would tell him to use some kind of dandruff shampoo, you know, over-the-counter shampoo. It wasn't bad enough for him to go to a dermatologist, you know.
All right.
He could just use a dandruff shampoo.
Okay. And would you ever shampoo his hair, or was that something he took care of himself?
Oh, he would do that himself.
Now, at any time during the, you've been cutting his hair for about 16 years plus?
Yes.
And so, during that time frame, did you ever have occasion to put any chemicals or anything of that nature on Mr. Simpson's hair?
No, well, I did about 10 years ago. I put a chemical relaxer on it to texturize it. And after that, we decided, the both of us decided that we didn't like it. So
That-
we wouldn't do that anymore.
All right, that was only one time in the last 16 years?
Only one time.
It was about
Right.
16 years ago?
About 10 years ago.
Okay, it was about 10 years ago?
Yes.
All right. And so if you look at Mr. Simpson's hair now, you're not doing his hair. This is not your product right here.
No, that is not my product.
We will disclaim that. But the way his hair looks now, then seems to have a little more gray. Other than that, is that the way his hair looks in a natural state?
Yes.
Now, with regard to, did you ever do anything about the gray in his hair?
Oh, yes. I would like clip them out to keep from putting chemicals in his hair.
All right.
One by one.
Now, I'd like to direct your attention back to the month of May of 1994. Do you recall a date toward the end of May of 1994 that you had occasion to cut Mr. Simpson's hair?
Yes, I do.
And can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the approximate date that you did Mr. Simpson's hair toward the end of May of 1994?
Yes, I can tell them because it was my birthday,
And your birthday was what?
May 23rd.
And do you remember what day of the week that was?
It was on a Monday.
And in your barbershop, do you have, like other barbershops in the community, do you have a day when you're normally off?
That's Monday.
Monday's your days
Yes.
off? All right. And so was that May 23rd, was that a 1994, was that a Monday?
Yes, it was.
All right. And that was your birthday, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Tell the jurors, members of the jury, how it came that you did Mr. Simpson's hair and where you did it.
I did his hair at his home,
All right. And do you remember about what time you arrived there, Ms. Moore?
approximately 6:30-ish. I guess 6:30.
And when you arrived there, tell us what happened then, if anything.
Well, when I arrived there, he was home alone, and we went.
Yes, with the court reporter, please. All right, thank you, counsel. Mr. Cochran?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think I was just asking you before we interrupted who was present at the time that you arrived there, and then what happened after that.
Mr. Simpson was home alone.
Okay, and then what happened after you saw him? You saw Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Okay, and then what did you do?
We went into the family room, and He was showing me a new musical system that he had installed, and it was kind of like a little toy for him. He was showing me how it works. It plays upstairs and downstairs in this room, etc.
All right. First time
And-
you'd seen that?
First time yes,
Okay.
I'd seen that, yes.
And what happened after that?
And we just sit there and we listen to the music, and we were waiting for the rest of the guests to arrive.
All right. Did some other people arrive?
Yes.
And who arrived, ma'am?
It was a lady, I can't remember her name, but he introduced me to her, and I forgot her name, but she was his director.
Director in what?
And I suppose the movies, and maybe Frogman, I'm not sure.
Okay. And,
And-
she arrived?
Yes, she arrived.
Okay. Did someone else arrive?
A little later on,
All right.
yes.
And who was that?
Paula Barberia.
Paula
arrived.
Barbieri?
Yes.
Excuse me, counsel. Ma'am, if you would, Ms. Moore, would you allow Mr. Cochran to finish asking you the question before you start to speak, because the court reporter can only report one person talking at a time, okay?
Okay.
And Mr. Cochran, would you let her finish answering before you start to answer the next
Certainly.
question, please?
I certainly will.
Thank you.
So that we're clear for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, tell us the order that people arrived there that evening.
Well, I came first, and then its director came, and Paula was last.
All right. Had you ever seen or did you know Paula Barbieri before that day?
Yes, I had seen Paula prior to that.
All right. Now, after everybody arrived, and by the way, was the director a male or female?
It was a female.
All right. And after everyone arrived, tell us what happened then.
We had a dinner.
Okay. And who prepared dinner, if you recall?
Gigi.
And is that Gigi Guerin, G-U-A-R-I-N?
Gigi is the maid.
Okay. Is that the lady who's a housekeeper there?
Yes, the housekeeper.
All right. So did all of you have dinner together?
Yes.
All right. And after you had dinner, what happened after that?
This director left, and Paula stayed for a while, and then she talked for a while, and then she left. And then I cut his hair, and he put the Frogman video on. So while I cut his hair, he watched the video.
All right. Were you able to see the video yourself at that time?
Well, I couldn't concentrate on it because I was cutting his hair.
Right.
But I did, look at it a little bit.
So you then proceeded to cut his hair, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And about what time was that, if you recall, on the May 23rd date?
Probably about 8:39, maybe.
And on that occasion, with regard to cutting his hair, you did not shampoo his hair, did you?
No.
He didn't have any chemicals in his hair, did he?
No.
And do you recall whether or not you did anything about if he had any gray at that time?
Yeah, I clipped the grays out.
And was this haircut similar to the other haircuts you gave him over the course of the 16 years you did his hair?
Yes.
Now, so in addition to Mr. Simpson being a patron or a customer of yours, was he someone who also, over the years, became a friend of yours also?
Yes.
Now, I'll save some time and ask you this. You didn't see Mr. Simpson on June 12th, 1994, did you?
No, I did not.
And was May 23rd, 1994 about the last time that you cut his hair?
It was the last time, yes.
And how had you gotten to that location, to Rockingham? How'd you get up there that night?
I drove my car.
And when it was over, you left, is that correct?
I left.
You came down here today pursuant to request to testify, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you very kindly.
You're welcome.
Ms. Clark.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Ms. Moore.
Good afternoon.
Dandruff, that's a condition of the scalp, isn't it?
Right.
Okay. And just from a layperson's understanding, because that's all I have, it's when your scalp gets dry, correct?
Right.
Okay. And when you have that condition where your scalp gets dry, if you comb your hair, you're going to pull those flakes off the scalp, is that right?
This is very true.
Okay. So when you would comb his hair when he had dandruff, those flakes would come out, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes yes and sometimes no?
Yes, well, the more vigorous I comb it, the more it would come out. Sometimes I would just brush it
Right.
and cut it. I didn't use the comb.
Right, so if you didn't use a comb, even if he had dandruff, you wouldn't disturb any flakes on the hair. Is that a fair statement?
That's true.
And so if his hairs came out by themselves, if they were naturally shed, you know what I mean, without being pulled out by combing, then they might not show any flakes of dandruff. Is that right?
Oral.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Sure. If you did not comb the hair, if his hair was just, you know, we shed hairs every day, don't we?
Yes.
Okay, unfortunately.
Yes.
And, all right, in that process, if you just shed your hair naturally and you're not combing, then the dandruff is not going to come off on the hair. Isn't that right?
Then it's not going to come off on where? I don't understand the question.
When you just indicated when you comb the hair vigorously, dandruff will come off.
Right,
Okay. And if you don't, if you just brush his hair, the dandruff doesn't come off.
right.
Okay. Which means that if you don't brush or comb the hair and it just falls out by itself, the dandruff doesn't come off.
Oral.
If you don't do anything to the hair, I guess it'll just stay there. I'm not sure, really. I guess it'll just stay on the scalp.
Okay. And it won't be shown up in the hair, right?
I can't
Sustain.
say that. I don't know.
Ma'am, when I sustain the objection, that means don't answer the question.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, next question.
Okay. So sometimes he had dandruff and sometimes he did not.
That's correct.
Okay. And sometimes in the summer when you saw him to take care of his hair, he would have dandruff, and sometimes he would not.
That's correct.
And dandruff, can that be caused by a change in hygiene, like what you eat and how you take care of yourself?
I'm not sure.
Oral. She's indicated she's not sure.
Okay.
Next.
And, for example, if you have a change in shampoo, can that cause dandruff?
Oral.
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure if changing shampoo would, it could help. It could cause it and it could help it.
Aggravate it.
It could cause it, make it better or make it worse.
Okay. So what about a change in the type of water you use? Could that cause dandruff or affect it or aggravate it?
Yes.
Oral.
Now, dandruff can occur in a 1 to 2 day period. Is that fair to say?
Sustain.
How long does it, if you know? Because you've been treating, how many people have you had as customers over the 30 years?
How many people I've had as customers?
Regular customers. Let's narrow it down some.
I really don't know the answer to that one.
Would it be fair to say thousands?
No.
Hundreds?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Of those hundreds over the past 30 years, have some of them had dandruff?
Yes.
What percentage would you say had dandruff?
I'm not sure. Maybe 5%.
And of that 5% that had dandruff, did you notice that some would have dandruff at times and not at others?
Yes.
And on those occasions when those people had dandruff sometimes and didn't have it other times, can the condition of having dandruff occur in the period of, say, a week to 2 weeks,
I suppose so.
depending on the change of water, shampoo, and whatnot?
That's correct.
Now, you indicated that, well, how long have you been going to Rockingham to do the defendant's hair?
I just about ever since I've been cutting his hair off and on, I would go to the house and do it too.
Okay, so on some of those occasions, you would see Nicole Brown there, I take it?
Yes.
Okay, and you knew her?
Yes.
And when prior to May 23rd did you see her at Rockingham?
I believe May 1st.
May 1st? Mm-hmm. Is that yes? I'm sorry, for the reporter. Was that, we can't say mm-hmm, we have to say yes or no.
Oh, yes.
Was that yes? Okay. And when prior to, you saw Paula Barbieri there on May 23rd?
Yes.
Okay. And when prior to May 23rd did you see Paula Barbieri there?
I didn't see Paula there. She came to my shop.
She came to your shop, did she?
Yes.
Okay. And did she come to your shop earlier in May?
No,
Did she come to your shop in April?
no.
When did she come to your shop?
Summer of '92.
Was that the only time?
Yes.
Okay, so she was not a regular customer of yours?
No,
Okay. And you did not socialize with her?
no.
Did you visit Rockingham again between May 23rd and June 12th?
No,
And so did you see the defendant between May 23rd and June 12th?
no.
Did you ever, to the best of your knowledge, ma'am, did Arnell Simpson treat her hair?
I,
Sustained.
Were you acquainted with the defendant when he was married to Marguerite?
no.
Okay. Did you ever meet Marguerite?
Sustained.
May we approach? I have an offer, Your Honor.
With the court order. All right, thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right. You're a professional hairdresser, are you not?
Yes,
Okay. And you've tinted and dyed hair in your time, have you?
yes,
Okay. Many times.
yes,
And as part of your expertise, you know what tinted or dyed hair looks like, correct?
well, sometimes you can tell, and sometimes you can't.
Right. Okay. As a professional, do you think that you could tell better than, say, I could, whether someone's hair is dyed or treated?
I object to the form of that question, assumes that she would tell them Ms. Clark. Object to the form.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
I'm not a hairdresser. Do you think that you, as a hairdresser, have a better ability to determine whether someone treats or dyes their hair than someone who is not a hairdresser and does not have the experience of dyeing and treating hair on a regular basis?
Yes,
All right. Are you familiar with the name Marguerite Simpson?
yes,
And you're aware that she is the former wife of the defendant?
yes.
In your opinion, ma'am, does she dye or treat her hair?
Sustained. Foundation.
Have you seen her hair?
Foundation.
You have
Ha-
seen Marguerite Simpson on television, have you not?
Yes,
In connection with this case, correct?
yes,
And you have seen her in your shop, perhaps?
yes.
And when was the very first time you saw her in your shop?
Probably about 1979, maybe.
And when you saw her in 1979, was her hair dyed or treated?
Overruled based on the offer.
I don't remember.
Since that time, though, you've seen her on other occasions, have you not?
I saw her about, I'm not sure. I'm not sure when it was, but it was maybe in the last few months or so. She came to the shop.
And when she came to the shop in the last few months, did you notice that her hair was dyed or treated?
Rephrase the question.
Can you tell us what your observation was of her hair?
You know, to be honest, I don't remember.
You don't remember?
No, I don't remember what her hair was like. I don't remember.
As a hairdresser, doesn't the way people's hair look, isn't that something that stands out to you?
That's true.
Overruled.
And that's something that you take particular notice of because that's your job, that's your profession.
That's true.
And you do not recall what Miss Simpson's hair looked like when you saw it a few months ago?
Sustained.
You do not recall whether your observation of her hair revealed to you that it was dyed or treated when you saw her a few months ago?
Sustained. We've already answered the question.
I don't think it is. All right. Are you familiar, you know who Arnell Simpson is, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you've seen her on television as well, have you not?
Yes.
Have you also seen her at Rockingham?
Not since May 1st.
May 1st was the last time you saw her at Rockingham?
That's correct.
And on that occasion, did you happen to notice whether her hair was dyed or treated?
Overruled. You can answer the question.
I don't know if she dyed it or not.
Could have been, but you don't know.
It could have been, but I don't know.
Sustained.
I don't know.
Wait. All right, she doesn't know. Answer will stand. She's indicated she did not know. Proceed.
Have you seen Arnell on prior occasions, that is before May 1st, 1994?
Yes?
And on those prior occasions, do you recall whether or not her hair was dyed or treated?
Overruled.
I don't know if she dyes it or not.
Did you make any observations that caused you to form an opinion one way or another?
I know her hair always looked nice.
Yes, other than looking nice, does it
That's,
appear?
that
does it
I
look to you-
remember.
Other than looking nice, does it appear to you to have been dyed or treated? Or tinted?
Sustained. It's been asked and answered.
I don't know.
Wait, ma'am. When I sustain the
Oh,
objection,
yes,
please
okay.
don't answer, all right?
I have nothing further.
All right. Mr. Cochran?
Just a couple of questions on these.
Ms. Moore, you've never done Marguerite Thomas's hair, have you?
No, I haven't.
All right, she's not a customer of yours, is she?
No.
Overruled.
And with regard to Arnell Simpson, you said her hair looks nice all the time?
Yes.
And she's not a customer of yours either, is she?
No.
And as far as you know, Mr. Simpson didn't change the water at his house between May 1st and May 25th, did he?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Not that I know of.
And you described for us that you had seen Paula Barberi back in 1992, and then you next saw her again on May 25th, 1994. Is that correct?
May 23rd.
May 23rd, 1994.
Yes.
Your birthday,
Right.
right? And the last time that you saw Miss Nicole Brown Simpson was on May 1st, 1994. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And were you at Rockingham on that date?
Yes.
And were you there to give Mr. Simpson a haircut?
Yes.
And was Miss Nicole Brown Simpson there that time?
Yes, she was.
Thank you very kindly for coming today. Nothing further.
Anything more, Ms. Clark? Certainly. Thank you. All right, Ms. Moore, thank you very much for coming in. You're excused. All right, next witness?
Yes, put your approach on, Mr. Moore.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Cochran, have you confirmed the availability of your next witness?
Yes, Don Thompson, Your Honor, LAPD officer, and I believe they've gone to check. I believe he's here. Court, please.
Is it Donald Thompson?
Don Thompson, Your
Don,
Honor.
all right.
I'll check also.
Mrs. Robertson.
Raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat on the witness stand and state and spell your first and last names for the record.
My name is Donald Thompson, D-O-N-A-L-D, T-H-O-M-P-S-O-N.
Mr. Cochran.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Officer Thompson. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Very good, sir. Thank you for coming this afternoon. I'd like to direct your attention, sir, back to the date of June 12th of 1994. At sometime on that date, in and around the noonday hour, were you assigned to 360 Rockingham in the city of Brentwood, or city of Los Angeles, Brentwood, California?
Not on June 12th.
All right. How about, can I do that and ask that same question for June 13th, 1994?
Yes, sir.
And at about noon on that day, were you assigned to the 360 Rockingham residence?
Yes, I was.
And at that time, was your assignment in the West Los Angeles district of the LAPD?
Yes, it was.
You were in the West LA division, I should say. Is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
Now, may I have just a second, Your Honor? May I have just a second? A piece of evidence, Your Honor, but we'll proceed. What time, if you recall, did you arrive at the Rockingham location on that date, sir?
I would say about 8 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little after 8:05 or so.
Okay, 8:05 on, and we're talking June 13th, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And at some time around noon or thereabouts, did you have occasion to see Mr. O.J. Simpson at that location?
Yes, I did.
And tell us what time that was you saw Mr. Simpson.
It was around noon,
All right, right around noontime?
somewhere around noon.
All right. And when you saw him, did he appear to you to be in an agitated state or an upset state?
Sustained.
Let me, Counsel Secretary. Can you describe how Mr. Simpson appeared when you first saw him around noon on June 13th?
Yes. He seemed to be in a hurried state.
All right. And did it appear as though he was just coming back to the premises there?
Sustained.
Could you tell whether or not he'd been there before or was just coming back?
Sustained. Phrase the question.
Certainly. Did you, when you were there at 8:05, you didn't see Mr. Simpson, did you?
No, I didn't.
All right. And you said, you just told this jury that you saw him around 12 noon, is that correct?
That's correct.
Did he appear to come from the street, Rockingham, onto the grounds at the time you saw him?
Yes.
All right. Did he appear to you also to be upset when you saw him?
Sustained.
Well, can you tell us anything else about his demeanor as you saw him there?
No.
Remember that you and I had a conversation yesterday in this courtroom?
Yes.
And at that time, I asked you about how Mr. Simpson appeared, and you recall indicating to me that he seemed to you to be agitated when you first saw him? Use those words, agitated?
I don't remember you using the words agitated, but he did seem to be in a hurry.
All right. You don't recall using the word agitated with me yesterday?
I may have used that word, but I
With
don't
that-
recall right now.
Would that somewhat fit it?
Somewhat.
All right, it's just your best recollection, officer, all right? Okay, so as he appeared in this hurried, agitated state, did you, strike that, before we get to that, had you, Your Honor, you're smiling. Sorry, okay, I just looked up and saw you smiling. It took me aback. Let me just take a moment here. Let's back up a moment. Prior to your seeing Mr. Simpson there at about 12 noon on June 13th, had you had a conversation with a detective by the name of Van Adder?
Yes, I did.
And did Detective Van Adder give you some instructions with regard to what to do when you saw Mr. Simpson arrive at the location?
Yes, he did.
What did he tell you to do?
Overruled.
Thank you. You may answer.
He told me to place the defendant in handcuffs as soon as he arrived.
Well, now, didn't he say specifically, told you to hook him up or cuff him, referring to Mr. Simpson when he arrived?
Yes.
All right. And when did he tell you to hook him up or cuff him when Mr. Simpson arrived? When did Van Adder tell you to do that?
That was shortly before Mr. Simpson arrived. I would say about a minute to a minute and a half before he arrived.
All right, so this would be then shortly before 12, right?
Well, that's if Mr. Simpson arrived at 12,
Okay, and your best estimate was around 12, is that correct, sir?
somewhere around 12 o'clock.
Okay, and so where were you when Van Adder gave you these instructions?
I was at the front of the Simpson residence.
All right, and on that particular date, at that time, Detective Van Adder was senior to you in your service with the LAPD, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was an instruction he gave you that you felt you had to carry out, isn't that right?
Yes.
And this was, so we're clear, this was on June 13th, prior to 12 noon on that date, is that correct? He gave you these instructions,
Overruled.
right?
Once again, that is if the actual time when Mr. Simpson arrived was, in fact, 12 o'clock.
All right, and that's your best recollection?
Yes.
Okay, we understand. So now, so Van Adder gave you these instructions, and then you saw Mr. Simpson after that, is that correct?
Yes.
And then Mr. Simpson came on the premises in this agitated, hurried state, and... Well,
Sustained. Sustained.
Well, let me see if I can state this. After you talked to Van Adder, when you first talked to Van Adder and he gave you these instructions to hook him up or to cuff him, you didn't see Mr. O.J. Simpson at that point, did you?
No.
All right. It was after that you saw Mr. Simpson, right?
Yes.
And then after you saw Mr. Simpson come on the premises, as you've described his condition, his demeanor, did you follow the instructions of Detective Van Adder? Did you hook him up or did you cuff Mr. O.J. Simpson?
Yes, I did.
And as he walked on the premises, did you hook him up or cuff him in an area over near where there appears to be some kind of a child's house?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
All right. Where did you hook him up or cuff him?
It was near the front door of the residence.
All right. And then at some point, didn't you ask him to step over to an area where there's some trees and...
Sustained.
All right.
Rephrase the question, please.
Sure, Your Honor. I'll be glad to.
It's hard to shift roles, isn't it?
No, Your Honor. I'll adjust, Your Honor.
All right.
Now, sir, you hooked him up or you cuffed him near the front of the Rockingham residence, is that correct?
That's correct.
And was anyone else around at that point?
I don't know what you mean by around.
Was anyone else real close, in close proximity to you and Mr. Simpson at that point?
At the time he was being placed in handcuffs?
Yes, sir.
At that time, I didn't see anyone near me.
All right. And after you hooked him up or cuffed him, did you move him to some other location?
No.
At some point, did you turn him over to someone else, Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
And who's that?
The detectives at the scene.
And who were the detectives we're talking about?
There were a number of detectives at the scene.
All right. Specifically, do you recall which detective, if any, you turned Mr. Simpson over to?
Not independently, I can't remember.
All right. When I say turn him over to a detective, after you hooked him up or cuffed him near the front of the Rockingham residence, is that where you left Mr. Simpson at that point?
Yes,
And then you went some other location at that point?
yes,
And when Mr. Simpson, when you last saw him, at least at that point, was he near the front of the residence?
yes.
At some point after that, did you ever see Mr. Simpson over under a tree near what appears to be a child's playhouse?
Same objection.
Did you ever see? You may answer.
Yes.
How much time elapsed from the time you'd handcuffed him by the front door to the time you saw him over by this tree in the child's playhouse?
Well, the location where he was handcuffed, which was close to the front door, was at that location specifically.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused when you say at that location.
Yes.
What are you talking about?
This tree and dollhouse.
Okay, so was it your testimony that he was handcuffed by the tree and dollhouse also?
I'm saying that the tree and dollhouse is in fact close to the front door.
All right.
He was handcuffed there, which happens to be close to the front door of the residence.
Okay, so if you had the front door to the right and the tree and the dollhouse to the left, which would he be handcuffed closest to?
I would say closer to the tree.
All right,
and
closer to that tree?
dollhouse. Yes.
All right. Now, prior to your testimony here, have you had occasion to see a video of you and Mr. Simpson on the premises there at about the time you hooked him up or handcuffed him?
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
And did you see it as recently as this week?
No.
When's the last time you saw it?
Well, I would say maybe about a month ago I saw a portion of it.
All right, who showed that to you?
I saw part of it on television.
All right, when, have you seen it since that time at all?
No.
All right. Now, you and I wanted to see if we have that. Is it Exhibit 1250? Let me see if we got it here. I'd like at this point to mark, and council perhaps may want to see it, Exhibit 1250. If I can talk to Mr. Darden for a moment, perhaps we can save some time. There are two exhibits here. Exhibit 1250, I'd like to mark now, and exhibit, I think, is 124. It's already in evidence, I believe. Real quickly.
Is this a fresh cup for, yes, it is. Proceed.
I'd like, as the court, Mr. Darden, I'd like to mark as the next exhibit, Exhibit 1250, Your Honor, defendant's next in order. I would ask the court to allow us to play it at this point. I want to ask the officers some questions.
1250.
Without the sound?
Yeah, I think without sound. I don't think there's any sound on it.
All right.
I'll see there's a monitor to your right and down. Do you recognize that gentleman in the white shirt?
Yes, I do.
And who is that?
That's Mr. Simpson.
And to Mr. Simpson's right is a tall gentleman in an LAPD uniform. Do you recognize that individual?
Yes.
And at that point, do you have your left hand on Mr. Simpson's right hand? Right arm, rather? You able to tell?
It looks like our arms are touching.
All right, and that, Your Honor, for the record of defendants 1250, it's 000801.05.
Yes.
Thank you. You may continue, Mr. President. And now we see you are touching him at that point, right? You have him by the arm?
Yes.
You have him by the right arm?
Yes.
All right. Let me continue. Now, he's just arrived at that location, isn't that correct?
Yes.
All right. Was that a fair and accurate portrayal of the way his arrival was depicted as he came back to that location on June 3rd, 1994, June 13th, 1994, around noon?
Yes, it was.
All right. Now I want to show you another one. I think the next one is People's 124. But this may already be in evidence. Your Honor. Now, this is this the tree we were talking about across from the front door of Mr. Simpson's residence?
Yes, it is.
And you recognize Mr. O.J. Simpson there?
Yes, I do.
And there was a police officer in front of him and in close proximity to him. Is that you? You may not be able to see it now, but earlier? Who is that in that picture now?
It looks like,
Back it up. I'm going to ask to back that up, Your Honor, again. Back.
Maybe you start at the front of that, because I think we see that
Yes, thank you.
the witness.
Now, I see a police officer behind Mr. Simpson, and I can't make out his name badge, but he has those couple of stripes on his arm there. Do you recognize who that is?
yes, I do.
Who is that?
That is me.
Okay. And is that about the time that you're hooking him up or handcuffing him?
Yes.
All right, because Mr. Simpson's hands are behind him at that point. Is that right?
No.
They're not behind him?
No.
All right. But this is just prior to the time that you handcuffed him?
Yes.
All right. And so that is you, though? All right.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, sir. Shortly after that, do you handcuff him? Are you handcuffing him now? In that scene now, is he handcuffed?
Would you play it back again for me? I glanced away.
Are you able to make anything out on that?
Yes.
All right. Now, at that point, is Mr. Simpson handcuffed at that point?
Not yet.
All right. You're in the process of, or about to start?
Yes.
Okay, go on, Mr. Harris, please, sir. Now, does he at some point, now, he's handcuffed at this point, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Now, and do you recognize Detective Van Adder, Phil Van Adder?
Yes, I do.
And at that point, you left the location, have you? Or left the immediate location?
Yes.
You returned to the front of Rockingham?
Yes, I did.
All right. And you had now hooked him up, is that correct?
I placed him in handcuffs. Yes,
All
I did.
And before you left, and is that a fair picture of how Mr. Simpson appeared when he's handcuffed, with his hands handcuffed behind his back?
Yes.
How long would you say he had been back home on his premises before he was handcuffed like that?
You're asking me how much time had
Yeah,
elapsed?
from the time he was walking in to the time he's handcuffed in that condition.
I would say about a little over 30 seconds,
About 30 seconds?
maybe a little longer, 45 seconds.
30 to 45 seconds would be a good estimate, is that right? And then thereafter, after this 30 to 45 second period of time, you then turned him over to the detectives, is that correct, sir?
Yes,
All right. And you then have described for us that you went back out to the front of the residence near the Rockingham gate, is that correct, sir?
that's correct.
When you returned to the Rockingham gate, did you observe a coffee cup on the hood of the white Ford Bronco parked there?
Sustained.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can rephrase it. When you returned to the Rockingham gate, did you see anything unusual on the hood of the white Ford Bronco?
Yes, I did.
What did you see, sir?
I saw 2 white styrofoam cups.
2 of them? And
Yes.
can you give us a word picture for the jury? Where were these white styrofoam cups?
They were on the hood of the Bronco.
And, oh golly, can you tell us, were they near the engine? Were they near the windshield? How were they situated? Give us a word picture, if you would. Picture.
I really don't remember exactly where they were placed, but I do remember they were on the hood.
All right. Were they close to each other, the 2 styrofoam cups?
Yes,
Were they side by side?
yes, close to each other.
And when you first observed them, how far away were you from the Bronco?
I would say about 15 to 20 feet.
From the Bronco? Right.
Yes.
All right. And so you saw these 2 styrofoam cups. And did you see any person close to the Bronco at that time?
No, I didn't.
All right. At some point, did you ascertain that from one of your brother officers who had put either one of these cups? Well, not yet. May I finish the question? Okay, thank you. Did you ascertain from your partner who had put at least one of these styrofoam cups on the Bronco?
Yes, I did.
And what was your partner's name?
Angela Guzman.
Guzman?
Yes.
And was she the lady, Angela Guzman, who was in the photograph, the first one we showed, defendants 1250?
Yes.
All right, and she told you who had placed both of the cups on there or one of them?
Sustained.
All right. As a result of your conversation with Angela Guzman, your partner, did you then have a conversation with a photographer?
Yes, I did.
Was this photographer a male or a female?
A female.
And was the subject matter of that conversation whether or not this female photographer had placed one of the styrofoam?
Sustained.
Well, this conversation you had with the female photographer, where did it take place?
In the street on Rockingham.
Was it near the Bronco?